Drake stopped the presses. The world middleweight champion comes into this open-weight semifinal bout 4 pounds heavier than Mirko Cro Cop. Single.
This is bad for Mark.
Very bad left hook. Uppercut finds its mark and...
He was an elite kickboxer and was the personification of the best pride fighters during the golden age of Japanese MMA. His legendary high kick was an inescapable threat, and his legacy was built on a multitude of brutally beaten rivals. But despite being recognized in the land of the rising sun, he never conquered the citadel of the overseas UFC. His name is Mirko Filipovic, and today we will remember the glorious career of the Croatian policeman, one of the ruthless knockouters in the history of combat sports. Mirko Cro Cop was born into a working-class family on September 10, 1974 in eastern Croatia, back then still part of socialist Yugoslavia. The would-be fighter showed athletic inclinations early, and his first successes were associated with sprinting. But once he saw Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude Van Damme on TV, he could no longer imagine his life without martial arts. At home, I drew a human figure and kicked it for hours. Combat training started for Filipovich with Taekwondo, but then kickboxing became his focus. From an early age, he fanatically trained in an old garage repurposed by his father where, in addition to pumping iron, he practically automated his future crown punch. My father made me a kind of pneumatic punching bag, but it was impossible to hit it with your hands. I nailed it to the ceiling and practiced high kicks every day, and that's how it all started. Having reached military age in '93, the would-be Cro Cop went to serve as a telegraph operator, but the death of his father in '94 and an improved transfer for training with the national kickboxing team abruptly changed his life. The colonel saw him off with the following words: "You may not become a great soldier, but a good fighter you will be. Twice a day, you will train and do everything to make the motherland proud." And Mirko did. Zvonimir Lucic turned Mirko into the terrifying fighter we now know. As both coach and manager, he was in the corner of the Cro Cop countless times. He helped Mirko with money during his student years long before he became a world star. At the age of 21, Filipovich already had 48 wins and 8 losses with 31 knockouts in amateur boxing, so he then decided to switch to professional kickboxing. The Japanese promotion, K1, was at the zenith of its glory, regularly organizing grandiose Grands Prix with the best fighters of the planet. During the first fight on March 10, 1996, Filipovich got Jerome Le Banner as a rival. He was called the French Cyborg, and for many years he was considered the most physically gifted K1 fighter, and in the ring, he looked like an indestructible Atlantean. But Cro Cop won in his debut by decision, knocking out the Frenchman with a hard left cross. The Croatian returned to Japan after 2 months. In the quarterfinals of the main Grand Prix of the year, he faces one of the greatest kickboxers in history, Ernesto Hoost, nicknamed Mr. Perfect. The experienced Dutchman confidently led the fight, and after beating off Mirko's left leg in the 3rd round, won with a technical knockout. Taking a break from professional performances, Filipovich returned to professional kickboxing only once in the next 3 years, winning the 8-man tournament in Prague. During this time, he became a 3-time Croatian amateur boxing champion and tried his hand at the international arena. At the same time, the Croatian fulfilled his childhood dream and joined the anti-terrorist unit Lučko, to whom he will give 6 years of his life. It was then previously announced as a Tiger that Mirko would receive the cult nickname Croatian Policeman, which in English sounds like Croatian cop, and abbreviated as Cro Cop. Returning to kickboxing in April '95 and having held 3 warm-up performances, Filipovich joined the main contenders of the K1 Grand Prix of '99. Whatever expectations may have been of Cro Cop's performance, he surpassed them all. Mike Bernardo, Musashi, Sam Greco, all were defeated. In the final, Mirko again went up against Ernesto Hoost. He bravely held on until the 3rd round. But a series of merciless blows to the body forced him to stop resisting. The Hoost of '99 was capable of destroying any kickboxer on planet Earth. Although the following year started well for the Croatian, it then bore a series of disappointments. In his native Croatia, for example, a loss to Andy Hug in June was closed out with a knockout. At the K1-8 tournament in October, Mirko beat the opposition twice, but the final was given up to Mike Bernardo due to his leg. Great hopes were pinned on the December 2000 Grand Prix, but his dreams of revenge and becoming world champion were mercilessly dashed in the quarterfinals by the ubiquitous Ernesto Hoost. After 2 years of active performances in K1 and 3 defeats by Hoost, Filipovich's ambitions for climbing the Olympus of the organization did not come true. The Croatian's dissatisfaction with his income also grew. It was necessary to change something, and 2001 was the beginning of the transition to MMA. In kickboxing, he performed only 3 times, as opposed to the recent 7 annual showings. The victory by decision over Peter Ertz was worth a lot. But after unexpectedly losing by technical knockout to Michael McDonald, Mirko agreed to try out mixed rules for the first time. At the August K1 tournament, dedicated to the memory of Andy Hug, his opponent was a medical phenomenon with an extremely thick skull, Kazuyuki Fujito. Despite being just a wrestler, the Japanese man held the title of National Wrestling Champion, took punches perfectly, and did not hesitate to go on the offensive. A year earlier, Kazuyuki gifted his first defeat to the smashing machine Mark Kerr. Therefore, the fight was a huge risk for the Croat. However, the clash of martial arts did not happen, and, reacting in time, the Cro Cop impaled the Japanese with his knee. As a result, a cut that opened above the left eye led to the fight stopping at the 39th second. It was obvious that he was going in, and I caught him with my knee. That's how my path in mixed martial arts began. Bursting onto the MMA scene with a victory, Mirko quickly gained a reputation as a grappler killer. The November domination over the famous Takada Nobuhiko turned into an official draw only due to special rules. At the New Year's tournament, the Cro Cop unveiled his famed killer high kick to the MMA world. Debuting in pro wrestling, Nagata Yuji went cold in 21 seconds. It is noteworthy that in his second and last attempt at MMA, Nagata faces Fyodor Yemelyanenko, all with the same sad result. 2002 started for Cro Cop with a return to kickboxing, where he beat Mark Hunt, winning by unanimous decision. In that fight, the Super Samoan shocked everyone present, managing to get up and continue the fight after eating a thermonuclear high kick. In April, Pride hosted a fight with the current king of the light heavyweight division of the promotion, Vanderlei Silva. The fight again adhered to special rules. The constantly aggressive Brazilian was a complete opposite of the stoically refined Mirko, for whom this was only the fourth performance in a new sport. But, despite the gap in experience, Cro Cop successfully repelled Vanderlei's attempts to end the confrontation early and defended himself perfectly. Although Silva proved his superiority in the fight, the meeting officially ended with a draw due to the format of the duel. Two months later, Cro Cop showed himself in K1 again, stopping the future kickboxing legend Remy Benjaski in the second round. With Sakuraba Kazushi becoming the next opponent. The Japanese, who was inferior to the Croatian in size, was returning after almost a year-long break caused by a shoulder injury. Nevertheless, the star status of both fighters allowed them to lead the historic Joint Pride and K1 tournament held in August 2002. However, according to rumors, right before the fight, the Croatian almost cancelled everything. Having seen with his own two eyes the 91,000 fans, he demanded his payment to be doubled, threatening to otherwise ruin the main event. After getting what he wanted, Mirko locked up Sakuraba in his guard for 2 whole rounds. Kazushi was taken out of the fight by an upkick that fractured his orbital bone. The Japanese fighter could no longer move on to the third round, turning Mirko into sports stars overnight. The year 2003 was a turning point for Cro Cop, where he completed his service in the anti-terrorist unit and became an elected member of the Croatian parliament for 4 years. At the same time, he suspended his kickboxing career that started in '96 and decided to focus solely on MMA. The Croatian held his last performance in K1 of the next 5 years in March against the favorite of the Japanese public, Bob Sapp. At that time, the US giant had 3 victories, 2 of which were technical knockouts over Ernesto Hoost himself. But the meeting with Cro Cop ended up being Bob's first serious beating. But then, in the second minute of the fight, Mirko shook Sapp's mighty body with a kick to the liver, and the subsequent cross shattered his orbital bone. Though even before the fight with Sapp, Filipovich was once again defeated, this time due to the decision of the judges and at the hands of the iron-headed Fujito Kazuyuki. Mirko was more proactive both in his stance and on the ground. Until recently, the Croatian, who had not been taken seriously by key MMA fighters, got Heath Herring as a rival. As it turned out later, Pride had hidden his opponent's name from the American until the very last moment. And Mirko, on the contrary, was informed about the fight several months prior in order to increase his chances of winning. Herring, who was preparing intensively for a wrestler, found himself against a punching machine and was outclassed in less than 4 minutes. The Croatian policeman entered the short list of contenders for the title. His chance at gold was the duel with the titled hitter Igor Vovchanchyn, the most intimidating knockouter of the 90s. In August 2003, however, Igor was on the decline, having lost 3 of his last 4 fights in Pride. Nevertheless, his name was still quoted in the highest echelon of sports, and a punch of monstrous power promised much intrigue in a duel. However, in battle, the Cro Cop did not linger for long. As soon as he caught the rhythm, lightning-fast left jabs began to find their target. In the second minute, Vovchanchyn bought into a hand feint and did not have time to dodge a flash hit from the right. The instant punishment with a high kick caused Igor to receive the only loss in his career. With this kick, Cro Cop flew to the top of the division.
There's the left, and now the kick comes, and it's going to be boom! Bam! Right there. He got it in time before that extra punch came in. He's hurt right there. There's another left that connects, and that kick absolutely devastating.
Yep, Yuji Shimada, he's the referee.
Right
He
there.
did a very good job there, because if that second one...
The demo fight with a pro wrestler was in October, where even with serious experience in grappling, Dos Caras Jr. did not last even a minute, having been sent into unconsciousness. After the 4th knockout in Pride, Filipovich announced his claim to the belt of the royal category.
See you next month in my title fight against the Mirko Fedor. Thank you.
But the contractual feuds between the Russian fighter and the promotion did not allow this meeting to take place. In order to prevent the star Croatian's bets from being lowered, Rodrigo Nogueira became his next opponent in the fight for the temporary belt. The Brazilian man had handed over the gold to Fyodor only 8 months ago. During this time, he managed to redeem himself with a victory over former UFC champion Rico Rodriguez.
Oh my goodness! Oh my! Or else that
However, this did not prevent Mirko from dominating the recent best heavyweight of the planet for a whole round.
There's a straight left again. That's obviously hurt him. And now watch this killer. Just watch this. Oh, that left kick's a good night. And he goes for that one.
With Mirko, I told you before.
He kept him there for a while, but that's really all.
Guerra cannot take him down. Oh, it's about to happen.
Cro Cop already at the center of the ring. You can hear the corner.
The Brazilian was saved only by his inhuman masculinity, which allowed him to snatch a victory via submission in the second part of the battle, making this fight the fight of the year. After the bout with Rodrigo, something the Croat prefers not to remember happened. In early 2004, Filipovich announced to the press that his manager, Miro Mijatovic, who had also collaborated with Fyodor Emelianenko, was no longer working with him. At the same time, Mijatovic was forced to refuse work with fighters at gunpoint. According to the former sports agent Cro Cop, knowing in advance what steps the Yakuza would take, turned away Miro for a huge payment. It is not known how true all the details described by the managers are, but in the future, this situation will come to light, becoming one of the reasons for Pride's collapse. In parallel with the behind-the-scenes scandals, Cro Cop returned to his winning streak with 2 crushing victories.
position. Soccer kick to the head. But he's back in the position. Soccer kick to the head. Gets a date with the Croatian. Man, oh man, Yamamoto is poking the caged animal, and there's a knee on his back, and Mirko there with two of them. There's a soccer kick, another soccer kick. Yamamoto trying to get back, cutting him up, measuring him. Mr. Yamamoto. Yeah. There's an uppercut looking to Shimada. You want me to continue? Here's another one. There's another one. It's over.
And did not even think to refuse the offer to perform in the grandiose Pride of 2004. In the quarterfinals, the tournament favorite was pitted against former UFC heavyweight champion Kevin Randleman, who was recently still keeping things in order in the category right below. Few people doubted the chances of the fighter killer's victory with his monstrous left high kick. But that April evening, the monster found a way to shock 42,000 spectators of the arena. Having brought Cro Cop down to the floor with a killer left hook, Kevin gave Mirko the first knockout defeat in MMA during a ground and pound and took the award for the upset of the year. Cro Cop lost? He lost? How? He just went and ruined everything. Fyodor, of course, meant the chance at fighting him. But Mirko will then regain his posture and again go on a campaign after the belt of Fyodor Emelianenko. But first, a meeting with his brother, Alexander, in August. The younger Emelianenko, who had not yet been beaten, had only 3 performances in MMA, and it seemed that he was not ready for such a leap in the level of opposition. Nevertheless, he managed to catch Mirko off guard, unexpectedly starting to box in a left-handed stance and becoming the aggressor. But when the initial shock passed, the difference in class was soon to be seen. At the same time, the fight between Cro Cop and Alexander clearly impacted Fyodor. Motherfucker, stop, you fucking bitch!
Cro Cop is back. Look at the replay. Whoa! Look at this. He's tuning in on his opponent, and there he comes. Oh, people, I cannot kick him in the head. He's too big. Well, that's beautiful. Bang. There we go. Wow. Oh, look at those shots.
Then, the cavalry in the form of the trio of former UFC heavyweight champions came into play. All skilled wrestlers designed to test what the Croat had learned from Fabricio Werdum. In less than a minute, Josh Barnett, making his Pride debut, managed to injure his shoulder and tap out in defeat. Kevin Randleman, who failed to repeat his success, was the next to give up in the same time frame. In the fight with Mark Coleman in February 2005, Mirko immersed himself in destroying the veteran during the 4th minute.
See the confidence here, boss.
Every time he hits it.
Again going for the shoot.
Bad for Mark.
Very bad. Left hook. Uppercut finds its mark, and down goes Coleman. Soccer kick puts an end to this one. Mirko Cro Cop.
The fight with Fyodor was inevitable.
Emelianenko, Fyodor, you are next.
But first, the Croatian needed to deal with the Russian's teammate, Ibrahim Magomedov.
Taking a shot, going to the body.
Oh, and he's around, but you know when Mirko Cro Cop's in the fight again, going to the
He's got a liver kick.
shot.
It's over and out.
As well against Mirko Cro Cop, always respectful.
But you see,
And there you see the champion.
7 wins in a row with 6 finishes paved the way for the August title match of Cro Cop vs Emelianenko Sr.
Mirko Cro Cop!
The challenger. And popping his head out is Coleman.
Undefeated in the organization with 19 victories in a row, redeeming himself immediately after the last misfire in his career during the last performance. At the same time, the Croatian could not count on a better moment for his fight. Fyodor came out with a serious injury to his right hand, deciding to endure the pain. The world of MMA was preparing to witness the most anticipated fight in the history of the sport.
Says he respects Cro Cop, and there you see them.
From the very start, Emelianenko took everyone by surprise by aggressively pressuring Filipovich out of his usual calm. Emelianenko's first attempts to enter a clinch with a punch and throw failed. Fyodor was more successful in working with combos.
He is a master in game.
Oh, nice boot.
But Mirko was considered the most dangerous striker in sports for a reason.
Those strikes and now
So close. Nice.
In the middle of the first round, he landed a double cross, and the subsequent high kick miraculously grazed his opponent.
Emelianenko, as we see some good shots from.
Yes. Oh, left. I
Wow,
think it's
that
that.
left, right on the nose.
But this one mistake cost Mirko a round.
Takedown by Emelianenko, but Emelianenko exploiting this for Cro Cop.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes.
A good one.
That's
Drill
what
those
he's trying to do.
sledgehammers down.
Cro Cop up kicking there. Oh, but coming down.
Do though. Yeah, go for legs.
In the second segment, Mirko noticeably sagged, starting to miss more while Fyodor was also on the
I'll
edge.
tell you, this guy just continues to morph, prove, and
They're trading. Look at.
right now Emelianenko has the power for the takedown.
Oh, he's pressing the action all
Oh,
the
there's
time.
a nice. Oh, he misses with the left, and Cro Cop comes back.
This round ended on the ground again.
Let's face it, here Emelianenko has been a very
Right away with the right low kick. Nenko, but now, oh, nice.
This final part was entirely dictated by Fyodor, who finally took a confident victory after this battle of the decade.
Series of both fighters standing. Mirko misses with the left. Emelianenko looking for the takedown, and backs to be slipping away out as well.
Yep. I think so too. I think.
He remains the most dominant champion.
Being defeated by the dominant champion of MMA did not at all break the Croatian on his way to world recognition.
Mirko Cro Cop, who now tries to great distance foster.
Having defeated Josh Barnett a second time, Cro Cop was met with Mark Hunt. It is not known why he wore wrestlers, whether he was going to grapple or just wanted to save his legs from hitting Hunt's concrete head. But to the surprise of many, the Super Samoan managed to beat the Croatian policeman.
도망가기에 너무나 급했죠.
Obsessed with revenge, Filipovich reached the best form of his career to take part in the 2006 Openweight Grand Prix.
Mirko Cro Cop is ready to claim.
In the quarterfinals, the Croatian did not even break a sweat against the middleweight Mino Ikusa.
He does a great job. He's hurt bad. Mino's hurt bad right now. This fight's over, yeah. Wow. So powerful. And tonight, I said earlier, we don't see enough jabbing, enough.
Short work of Ikuisa.
In the following round, the title judoka Yoshida Hidehiko got totally unwound. The Japanese went through a world of suffering after a series of cruel low kicks.
Side, and again goes to that lead leg, and it's doing its damage. As you
Right there.
nice right by Yoshida, but he is hunting Yoshida. Rocks him with that uppercut. Down goes Yoshida. Behind Hidehiko, Yoshida gets tagged with that left cross again, and now challenging Cro Cop. Oh, and that leg kick has hurt Yoshida Sport. Mirko Cro Cop unable to continue.
In the September semifinal, the Croatian knockout machine was opposed by Vanderlei Silva. 4 years had passed since the first meeting, and Silva was met with a seasoned veteran of MMA with 25 fights under his belt.
Pissed off about this fight. He is not happy at all.
Nice middle.
Having already been knocked down in the second minute, Vanderlei had only been delaying the inevitable.
Is going to be able to continue.
Early in the first round, he was Cro Cop's
After missing a few straight lefts, the eyes of the Brazilian squeezed shut and prevented him from seeing the impending end, resulting in the knockout of the year.
Vanderlei's right side of his hip.
Cro Cop, what it was tonight. Would you agree that this is the most dominant we have ever seen Mirko Cro Cop in Pride Fighting Championship? Talking.
During the final that happened the same night, Filipovich was opposed by Josh Barnett, who had only just defeated Nogueira. The American gave up a trilogy of rounds at the 8th minute, giving Cro Cop the Grand Prix gold and the title of Fighter of the Year.
And that left hand is unbelievable. Slipping, showcasing some strength as well, able to create some distance and just...
Oh my gosh!
Cro Cop has the big advantage over Josh Barnett.
Uh-oh. Oh, Josh is so quick.
And he just got hit.
Oh no!
Mirko Cro Cop, happy 32nd birthday, open weight championships.
This is the happiest day in my life. It's my 32nd birthday.
Having ascended to the top of the game, the Croatian turned his gaze to the UFC, where he debuted in February 2007. His opposition was the unbeaten finisher, Eddie Sanchez. In less than a round, Mirko confirmed his elite status by dealing with the American without any problem.
And they're not landing at all. So far, the fight has lasted on pattern. This fight. Eddie Sanchez got to get out of there. Where do you go? It's over. It is over. Mirko Cro Cop.
The pause in performances did not last long. And after 2 months, a challenger duel with Gabriel Gonzaga took place. Last year's BJJ World Champion had 3 early wins in the UFC with a total of 7 wins to 1 loss. The Brazilian was predicted to only have a chance at the start, with the idea of a knockout from Gonzaga being considered crazy. But MMA again showed its absolute unpredictability. Everything was decided on the ground by his elbows. When I got up, there were 3 Gonzagas in front of me, and by then, it was all over. The sensational destruction of Cro Cop by his own signature high kick is worthy of the title of Knockout of the Year, and to this day, it still occupies a top spot among the most shocking knockouts in the history of sports. But in order to explain the defeat, it is necessary to analyze the changes in Cro Cop's technique. Mirko had never been a strategic genius with just a wide arsenal of weapons. At the same time, natural explosive power and frenzied speed were complemented by competent tactical calculations. While performing in kickboxing, he was much more willing to use combos and vary his kicks. But the transition to MMA turned him into a pressuring sniper that preferred to work with singular blows. Mirko was usually greatly assisted by the ring itself, where, unlike the octagon, it was possible to squeeze an opponent into a corner and then bombard him with blows. But the main secret of his opponent's toppling over from his kicks lies in the perfected classic double left side attack. When the left cross is combined with a side kick to the body or head, both strikes start with the same movement, but they hit the target at extremely different angles. This forces the opponent to react to the cross over and over again and bring his hand forward, with the Cro Cop depriving him of protection from a side blow, after which came an armor-piercing high kick. An attempt to evade the left cross instead of blocking with their hand was also met by Mirko's shin. Despite the aggressive attacking style, the Croat was also able to work his number 2, resulting in a sidestep with a cross that had been honed to absolute automation. As soon as the attacking opponent rushed forward, the Cro Cop shifted to the left, and the enemy, now unbalanced and forced to turn around on the move, ends up being a stationary target for a killer left.
Kick by Cro Cop and a happy at all. Nice middle kick by Cro Cop and a good left hand as well. As there's Silva. The one thing on Silva is his...
Unlike previous performances, we saw a completely different Mirko against Gonzaga. The fault was either age or Mirko's self-confidence, where in a fight with the Brazilian, his usual light feet were nowhere to be seen. As the former sports agent of Cro Cop, Mirko Mijatovic noted, the loss of speed at the age of 30 has become a problem, since his strength lay in the ability to evade blows and counterattack in time. Instead of pulling the opponent himself while retaliating in the form of a lightning-fast cross, Mirko stubbornly slipped to the left of himself, as if asking for a power shot from Gonzaga's right. This made for optimal conditions for a high kick.
Done that any better.
He drops his hands, bang, right on the tail back. We can see that angle again.
5 months after the defeat at the hands of the Brazilian, Cro Cop brought the defeat counter to 2 in a row for the first time in MMA. After losing to Cheka Congo in a dismal battle and demonstrating serious shortcomings inside the octagon, Filipovich returned to Japan in 2008. Rejecting thoughts of retirement, Mirko corrected things with 2 victories in the newly formed Dream promotion.
No. Let's see if he can get back.
Mizuno Tatsuya fell in less than a minute.
Got in a little too close.
The Korean giant Hongman Choi lasted longer, but was cut down by a series of evil low kicks. And only Alistar Overeem spoiled the statistics with a forfeited fight where he bombed the Croatian's testicles with his knees.
Overeem with that knee, and that might have been... Yeah, you know what, this is just... Fans in any sport seems like a little more... Now the stream picks up and the knees continue from Overeem. We're getting it going here. And they go... Yeah. Cro Cop. No, he got... Yep. Yeah, there's a yellow card.
Yeah, but I say if this happens all the time, they should just tell this is really
Universal language, love and a kick in the...
Seeing Mirko's successes, the bosses immediately recalled him from Japan. On his 99th tournament in June 2009, the Croatian even gave the titled grappler Mustafa Al-Turk a chance. But after 3 months, the Cro Cop was run over by Junior Dos Santos, who was running at full speed to the top. Filipovich had never experienced such a beating in MMA, and after holding out for 3 rounds, he stopped the bout due to an eye injury. Having lowered the competition bar, Mirko won 2 subsequent visits to the octagon. In February 2010, Anthony Perosh was victimized, while in June, Pat Barry, who had not yet even debuted, became a victim of his own friendliness. Having been floored twice in the first 5 minutes, the Cro Cop resorted to grappling in the second round. Barry's depleted gas tank opened up a window of opportunities for Mirko. Barry was hammered into the net and a minute later was tapping out from a rear choke.
Mirko Cro Cop is one of the most devastating strikers to ever.
But this was only the calm before the storm.
Nice elbow by Cro.
In the next 2 matches, the Croatians suffered crushing defeats. Plus, before the meeting with Roy Nelson, Mirko tore his hand ligaments. The sheer willpower and force of character that allowed him to enter the cage with such injuries was just not enough.
Put on a huge performance here tonight. Again, watch for the big right hand, and there it is. Big right hand, but Cro Cop got him back. Uppercut by Cro Cop. Roy's looking to finish here in the second. Yes, it kick, seconds of the pace here early.
Oh, he's got a big right hand.
Mirko Cro Cop.
Stop, that's it.
It is all over.
The negative knockout counter reached 3-0. For over a year, Cro Cop will not appear in MMA, having returned to kickboxing for the first time in 9 years. His opponent at the tournament in Croatia faced the Cro Cop for his last battle. This was the retired finalist of the 2000 K1 Grand Prix, Ray Sefo.
To this level, and these guys just going through, no clinching. Japanese referee, Atush Omadi.
Having given up even before the judges' decision, Sefo finally put away kickboxing, while Mirko was once again just warming up.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Arena Zagreb, where tonight present.
In 2013 and 14, Mirko Filipovic will organize 7 more kickboxing fights and would also win the K1 Grand Prix assembled specially for him in Croatia. The only issue would be a rematch against Remy Bunjaski in March of 2014, which Cro Cop will close out with 1 victory. With this, his career in kickboxing will come to a logical end. On the contrary, in MMA, he will recover from his defeat in the UFC with a victory over another Japanese fighter. In 2013, Mirko will go against Alexei Oleinik. That very evening at the Moscow Legend Tournament, a rematch with Alexander Yemelyanenko was supposed to have taken place, but the infamous brawler dropped out of the fight with Oleinik coming out to replace him. Only needed the first round to win with a choke. For Alexei, this performance was a turning point, paving his way into the UFC. Having easily demolished the once promising Japanese Ishii Satoshi twice, Mirko signed a contract with the UFC for the 3rd time in April of 2015.
Definitely is going to be one of the most important fights in my life. I just want to rematch and I just want to beat him. It will give me motivation to train hard, motivation to fight harder than I would fight
Fight hard, fight fair, fight clean.
The 40-year-old Croatian easily dealt with his opponent Gabriel Gonzaga.
And another good shot on the inside. Gonzaga looks right for a second. He's wobbly on his legs. Cro Cop looking to land some shots. Well, Gonzaga's right. Again, looks like he's turned again. Beautiful elbow.
Demonstrating his progress in the mastery of elbows, Cro Cop earned his victory on the 14th minute of the duel. Alas, the third attempt to conquer the UFC also ended in failure. Right before his fight in November, Mirko announced his retirement from the sport. As it turned out, according to his doctor's prescription, he took banned substances to treat his injured shoulder. All of this he reported in advance to the relevant authorities. But as a result, the voluntary confession led to a 2-year suspension, even though the doping tests turned out negative. Having been released from the contract with the UFC in the summer of 2016, Cro Cop went to the forgiving Japan, and after defeating 4 opponents, the Croatian athlete became the winner of the Rising Grand Prix and finally found his peace. In the following years, Mirko performed solely for the sake of keeping fit, waiting for the best option for a flashy farewell fight. Just 2 weeks after tying up loose ends with Nelson, Mirko announced on Croatian television that he was retiring, this time without the possibility of another return. The 44-year-old veteran was forced to take such drastic measures after experiencing a stroke following a recent performance. Even after successfully undergoing treatment and continuing training, he can no longer afford to risk his health in the ring. His official record in MMA was set in stone at 52 fights with 38 wins, 30 of which were knockouts. Mirko Filipovic gave almost 20 years of his life to combat sports. He never did manage to win the coveted palm branch during the golden years of K1. He also could not become the greatest fighter of his time in MMA. But despite such an insidious fate, he managed to not become a prisoner of unfulfilled ambitions. The Croatian ended his MMA career with a series of 10 consecutive victories, decorated by the coveted regalia of K1, Pride, and Rizin. But most importantly, he remained in the memory of fans for many years who instinctively recall the impeccable high kick at the mention of Cro Cop.
Strong left leg there,
That's what it was there.